How are we doing, everyone? A little bit of drama today. The RFU have approved a reduction in tackle height for the English community game from the 1st of July 2023. So a few things to get right and to get focused on here. Change is good, okay? So change is good for rugby union because we want to make the game safer, okay? So the RFU, they've not done this for any bad intention or any bad reason, right? They're smart. They are the governing body of English rugby, and they need to see the game evolve, exist, thrive, and become commercially viable, right? So they've done this for good. So the big thing for me is I don't think we'll see this in the professional game. It ain't coming to the very top of the game. The issue that I've got is, and I'm going to start with the good thing. I'm going to start with the good thing first. The good thing for me in this is I think children and kids, let's say the age of 13, my lad's 12, they should be tackling low. I don't think there should be anything, not above hip necessarily. I think anything above the chest should be a high tackle. So I coach my son a little bit in different sports, but rugby, because obviously that's my background, and he wants to play rugby, to chop tackle, okay? Cheek to cheek, the optimal tackle that you see, low body, wrap your arm, squeeze the cheek of your face on the cheek of the backside of the person that you're tackling. That is what I think kids should be doing. That's what they need to be taught. That's what they need to be coached. And it needs to be inherently put in, deep rooted, that if they ever want to become a professional, which they might not, this isn't about players that are going to make professional rugby players. But if they're coming through that system, eventually they will be coming through that system. So they will be the professional rugby players coming through. So if they're taught to tackle low, then the high tackle in the future will be reduced at the highest part of the game. Again, to reiterate, I don't think we'll see this go into the professional game. It's ridiculous. And there's a number of reasons why. Let's start off with that, right? It's ridiculous having played the game. So I'm well placed. I played the game at the highest level for 15 years. And I've made a lot of tackles. Not very good tackles. I wasn't a great tackler. And this comes on to the point where I know what I'm talking about. So played professional rugby highest level for a long, long time. Every day, every session, every week, every working week, every review after a game was around my tackle technique. 6'8", and I need to tackle lower, okay? Which wasn't easy because I'm 6'8", 6'9", okay? So in that position was probably the most uncomfortable position I could find myself on a rugby pitch. Not all tall players are like that. Most are. Brodie Retallick isn't. Grant Gilchrist for Scotland is a good low body tackler. So genetically, athletically, some players have either got it or they haven't. They need to work on it. Owen Farrell, that deep-rooted rugby league style high tackle, has been in there since he was a kid. I know he's working on the tackle technique. I know a number of players at tackle high are trying to work on the tackle technique, and it is not easy. Okay, people think, oh, professional rugby players just tackle low. It's not as simple as that. I had 4 shoulder reconstructions, 2 on that side, 2 on that side. And I remember being at Leicester as a young lad, having had surgery. I nearly retired on my shoulders early doors. And we did one-on-one tackling with Phil Larder, and my mate Brett Deacon, my best mate, who's now coach at Leicester, would run straight at me, then do a tackle, run straight at me on the left, straight at me on the right, and I'd have to make a low body tackle, right? His job was not to make the tackle passive, right? So his job was to run over me effectively, which he did every time. Because my shoulder mechanics, I couldn't get my arm up to tackle, and you think of the carrying mechanism at the highest level, but also away from kids rugby for teams that want to win at Nat 1, university, colleges, etc., school. The tackler, the one that we think and people are talking about is at risk of the head trauma, is the one in the compromised position. So the person running the ball carrier effectively, their job is to try and run over the tackler, okay? At the highest level. In a controlled environment, it's very different. You can work on it. So that comes to my point. Take the children's aspect out of it, okay? Because if kids are playing sport, playing rugby, yes, winning's important. We all know that. But the enjoyment part of it, the technique part of it, and the participation, especially in rugby, is hugely important, right? That is the number one focus in rugby at the minute, is getting numbers playing, making it enjoyable, making it fun, making it simpler. And I'm going to part that because I agree that this new tackle law and the safety element around it needs to be put into grassroots kids rugby. I'm all for it. So RFU, congratulations and well done. I'm in agreement with you. But I'm telling you now, having been a player at the highest level, and that filters down slightly, the game is similar, albeit at a much higher pace professionally, internationally. But I actually feel for these lads that have been playing, or they play in the vets, or they play in the second team, or even the first team. Like if you're playing in Nat 1 or below that club rugby, if you've been playing rugby for 5 years and you are not a great tackler, and then you're now asking players to tackle below the waist, I'm telling you now, it is one of the most uncomfortable, the hardest skills to do in rugby. Not only do you need to be brave, which you need to be to play rugby, you need to be strong in that position. Most of us aren't. It's not a natural position for anyone. And if you've been doing it for years, then it's going to be near on impossible. I'm telling you now, if you're working on the bins like my mate Mike is, and he's not a low tackler, he's not a high tackler, he just tackles humans, thinks about it, but he can't get low. I'm telling you now, so he's probably going to have to retire. Probably not a bad thing for old piss poorings. It's not a bad thing that he's going to have to retire. The big issue around this is it's come off the back of 55 amateur players claiming playing the game has led to brain injury. So this has come off the back of that. It's not an issue, sorry if I said that it was an issue. It's not an issue. It's for the right reasons. It's come quickly is the issue. So 1st of July 2023, we're recording this on 19th of Jan. So there's not a lot of time, 6-7 months for coaches of kids, which isn't the problem, but colleges, universities, clubs all around the land to try and change behaviours, tackle technique in a position which is very difficult to get in. The issue is now you get in them positions, you can train it all day long, right? You run at me, low body tackle. You run at me, low body tackle on my left, low body tackle on my right, cheek to cheek, brilliant technique. The issue lies when you're playing rugby at speed, which it should be played. The person running at you is trying to run over you or run round you, and you've got less than 1 second to make decisions and to readjust. There's bodies around you, and this is the whole thing at the highest level that we're seeing that is topical now. You have split-second decisions, and if you're 6 foot plus, to try and get from stood up, which is how you run, everyone runs upright, okay? You run upright, you're stood in the defensive line, you're not on your hands and knees, you're not on all fours, you start the game upright. Okay, you move around upright, you defend, you move up in the defensive line, upright, you move side to side, you're upright because that's how you move. So having to get from that position, if there's an inside ball, if there's a play off the back of the line out, if there's players coming around the corner and you're coming around the corner at the same time, and you've got a split second to get down, not just down, as in down, below waist, I'm telling you now, it ain't going to happen. So I know there's a lot of interaction on social media. I put a tweet out. Well, again, I just piggybacked what everyone else is saying around the RFU. I agree with them. Something needs to change. I think it needs to happen low down with the young kids. Make it that deep rooted that when they come through and when they go into college and university and school, and then hopefully if they want to become professional rugby players, that they take that into the academies and then they're good tacklers. That's what you want. That is what rugby is. Rugby is about carrying, it's about tackling. They're the fundamentals of the game, and passing. But the physicality part and the physical part to it, we can't shy away from the fact that rugby is a contact sport. I agree we need to make it safer. The RFU are panicking because of the stuff that's coming out. World Rugby as well are going through something. From what I'm hearing, going through something, they're going through everything. They're dealing with the litigations, they're dealing with the early onset dementia, they're dealing with a crisis that we're in at the minute in rugby. Participation numbers are falling. And is this going to make it any easier? Well, if you look on social media, people are like, well, I may as well quit playing rugby. Let's not go there yet, because I don't know whether this will be enforced in adult rugby and school rugby from a certain age. I think it's near on impossible to change, not change the techniques, but for referees who are going to have the big issue to enforce tackle technique below the waist. I think below the nipples, potentially, but below the waist, it ain't going to happen. It's not going to happen at the highest level of the game. The reason they're doing it, to quote unquote, it will reduce the risk of concussion. So that is what the RFU are doing. That is what World Rugby want. They're panicking, and rightly so. They need to panic because of the crisis that we find ourselves in. This is a way of doing it. It's a change that I like for kids, but it's not going to filter through to the highest level. And for you amateur players out there playing pub, playing club rugby, I'd say let's see how it unfolds and don't hang your boots up just yet. For the referees thinking about hanging up the whistles, just give it a little bit more time. Social media, right? The place of debate, but hopefully I've given a little bit of context, a little bit of depth, and a little bit of tone. That's why I'm doing these videos. It looks much better. There's a bit more forum to interact on here. The game of rugby, which I love, gave me everything. The game of rugby that you love, it needs saving. It does. And I'm here to talk about the good things for the game. But again, as a dad, as a parent, and wanting my kids to play rugby, my lad wants to play rugby, I want to see him tackle low. That's how I want him to play the game. Not only is it safer in terms of being able to do that, but also in terms of the athletic ability and that you have been able to operate in them low positions. I should finish on this as well, because this has become quite topical at the highest level, and I may as well talk about it now as we're on here. I have seen more injuries of my colleagues, my friends, my brothers on the rugby pitch from tackling low. So my concussions, my micro concussions, all came from hip on head, knee on head, elbow on head from the carrier, head on head from the carrier. Me as the tackler, I suffered most of my concussions and head traumas being the low tackler. I've got 2 players, I'm happy to say it, World Cup. It wasn't the quarterfinal, that was in 2007. 2011 against Argentina, Kelly Brown, low body tackle, Sparkoed. Alistair Hargreaves playing for Saracens, one of the best tacklers I've played with, low body tackler, bang, head on hip, Sparkoed, can clean out. I've seen some horror injuries from people going low. 2 tacklers coming in together to go low because they're going below the waist. Again, you're struggling to get below that unless you're extremely athletic. What does that tell you? 2 players coming in adjusting at the same time, head-on-head collisions. Now, I absolutely need to look at the stats. I need to look at the data, because I'm not well read enough on this in terms of the research done. Because I'm looking at this, and just to quote here, mounting scientific evidence to justify and to point to successful trials around the world, right? So I don't know where the mounting scientific evidence is around the tackle height. It's clearly out there, and that's on me to look at that research. I think it's my responsibility working in the media, but also as a parent to look if that is the case, and also trials around the world. In France, it's worked. So you look at France, well, they say it's worked. I don't know. That's what I'm going based on what I've read. They're saying that it's worked in France and they've trialled it there. We tried some stuff in the championship, lower division. It got scrapped after about 3 months because lads were getting banjoed left, right and centre. It's worked in France. We need to look at the numbers there. Their participation rate is through the roof. The World Cup's there in a few months' time. They're thriving as a rugby and a sporting nation. So if it's worked there, we're going to have a look at it here, aren't we? Whether or not it filters into the club game, I'm still not too sure, even though that's come out. But what I'm hearing as well is the other unions are going to follow suit. The SRU, the WRU, in the next few days, it's going to come out. So it's happening right now in terms of the changes for July. Whether or not it goes all the way, to reiterate, I don't mind seeing, well, not that I don't mind, I want to see kids tackle lower. It's good for them. It's going to be good to take that in as they get older, having done it, the old 10,000 hours, like the ping pong man said. But I think we're going down an unknown rabbit hole here of changing a game that will look unrecognisable if we stick to this. The tackle height needs to become lower, but not below the waist, every single one. You're adjusting at great speed, you're adjusting on wet ground, and you can't control what the ball carrier is doing. If he moves at the last moment, so you think he's running towards you, he steps at the last moment and you're stood upright, well then you can maybe get head on head, you're confused, you look at the Ben Loader one, London Irish against the Stormers. I think it was the Stormers at the weekend, yeah, it was on Le Boc. Now, people are saying about that red card, I felt for Ben Loader. He was caught in two minds. He was in that kind of space. He didn't know which way to go. And by the time he'd even thought about it for a split second, head-on-head collision, and they were both fucked. So the game of rugby is in a weird place. I'm here to talk about it. I'm pretty decently placed to talk about it as well, having played many years at the highest level, and also given a lot of my body, my neck, my shoulders, and my head as well to the game. So interact, all love, all drama.